To the Don J MMA podcast. It's been a while, but we are back, and I'm here with Don Dada. How are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all good coming off that UFC Austin card. That's what a fight night should be, in my opinion. Obviously, we've got the Song Yadong one coming up this weekend. Big dramatic decrease in terms of fights on that card that are of any interest, to be honest. But yeah, UFC Austin delivered 9 finishes on the card.
Yeah, I mean, finally, I think the UFC fought for a good while that they didn't have to put a pay-per-view worthy card together for a fight night, but a lot of people were saying that that could have been a pay-per-view if it just had a even bigger headliner. It was a great card. I mean, how can you complain? Um, Quickly to touch up on the first fight I want to mention is Davison Figueiredo or Figgy. He beat Rob Font, and listen, it was convincing, but is it convincing enough to tell you he's going to be a UFC bantamweight champion?
I don't think he'll be bantamweight champion. No, I think there's one fight that should be made now, and everybody wants to see it, and that's him versus Jan. Now,
Yeah,
whether or not they do that next, which I think it makes sense anyway, because realistically, Figgy's just fought there. He won pretty convincingly against Rob Font, barely took any damage. Jan wants to fight at UFC 299. Figgy doesn't have that big weight cut anymore. Make it happen. That card
yeah,
needs other fights on it. That's the O'Malley Cheeto Vera card, which again makes a lot of sense because then, say Figgy beats Jan, he's really in there for a shot at O'Malley next, realistically. That's a massive win for him. Plus, Jan and Figgy both are good stylistic matchups for O'Malley. So, say they do fight in that card and someone wins, the UFC probably will push for those guys to fight for the belt because Sanhagen and Marab both beat O'Malley, in my opinion, and the UFC see him as this cash cow and they'll want to keep him champion as long as possible.
yeah. I mean, the thing with Piotr Jan is he needs a win. Figueiredo wants to make his way up in the rankings. He's not exactly young anymore, so I think that's the fight that we need to make. It's a good stylistic matchup, like you said before. I do personally think Piotr Jan isn't as bad as what people are making him out to be. He's not on a decline. He got an
No.
unlucky decision with Sean O'Malley, an unlucky decision against Aljamain Sterling, fairly, but it was very close. Um, and in his last fight, who was it even just lost to? Who was it again?
Marab, but again, like Marab's the number one contender, and he shot like 50 takedowns in that fight, and Jan nearly stuffed all of them.
Marab's one of the best in the world, you know. There's nothing wrong with losing to Marab. He just drowned Piotr Jan out. So I think Piotr Jan would show Figgy levels, but it'd be interesting to see. I think it goes to show, though, that Figgy doesn't have the same one punch knockout power that he had at flyweight, at bantamweight. I mean, Rob Font's been dropped numerous times. I actually thought Figgy was going to knock him out cold. I think he had him going for a split second, but apart from that, I don't believe Figgy's got the same amount of power, and I don't think he ends up becoming champion. But looking at it, how stacked is that division now? Even with
Yeah,
Figgy in,
yeah, it
it
is
is.
crazy, especially if they do Jan and Davison Figueiredo. I think Jan will. Well, I actually, depending on what they make that fight, if that fight is a 3 rounder, Figgy has a chance.
Yeah,
If it's a 5 rounder, you favor Jan. But again, just talking about that matchup, it would be a good fight to see. The only real issue is I have for it is Figueredo. If he fights Jan, Jan has fought at featherweight before, so he will be bigger, like
yeah,
massive. He's Figueredo's coming up from flyweight. Jan is arguably coming down from featherweight because he's fought there before. There will be a big size difference when those two fight. But again, it's a fight that all the fans want to see, and I want to see it personally, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, it's a very, very, very good fight. Moving into the core main event, what did you make of it? I mean, it was Bobby Green, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the fight before that was Sean Brady, Kevin Gastelum, if you want to go over that quickly.
Oh, hell, Calvin Gastelum. I mean, what can be said? I mean, this was supposed to be it. I actually thought he was a difficult matchup for Sean Brady, but look, the weight cut, you know, I mean, maybe his camp was more focused on a pure weight cut, but I mean, Sean Brady did what he had to do, and I feel sorry for Kelvin. I actually really like him, but I think his time has been and gone. I think it's time to stop.
You think so? See, I've been seeing a lot of people saying he's washed, and I disagree. I just think Sean Brady's that good, and everybody kind of just disregarded him because he got beat by Bilal Muhammad. And there's no shame in that. Bilal Muhammad is arguably going to fight for the belt next at welterweight. I don't necessarily. A part of me thinks it's not necessarily who he got beat by in Bilal Muhammad. It's how he lost to Bilal Muhammad because Bilal doesn't. He isn't known for having knockout power, and he did stop Sean Brady. But yeah, like you said, I really favored Kevin coming in this matchup. I thought he or Kelvin, sorry, I thought he'd be able to stuff the takedowns, and he's a much better striker than Sean Brady. And like we've seen in the Bilal fight, Brady does not take well the damage being dealt, and we've seen Kelvin Gastelum knock out middleweights. So I honestly thought he would have got the stoppage, but again, Sean Brady just took him down, dominated him. And Sean Brady is a big threat in this division, to be honest. Like that was a really good performance. And he subbed him as well. Yeah, I don't think Kelvin's done. I'd like to see him fight at welterweight again. Obviously, he's someone outside of the rankings. But yeah, Sean Brady was really impressive. Like really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Brady's definitely got a lot of skill. But like you said, it didn't look good in the Bilal Muhammad fight. Maybe that was just an off night. And obviously, I feel like he didn't expect Bilal to bring it the way he did either. I don't think anybody thought
No.
Bilal Muhammad like that. Um, but at the end of the day, my thing with Kelvin Gastelum is what does Kelvin Gastelum want to be? Does he want to be a top contender? If so, I don't believe he's going to be. I thought Matt going up into this matchup, I thought Kelvin was well rounded enough. I thought he was going to be quite physically strong moving
Yeah.
down. I thought he was going to hit extremely hard, which I think was going to give Sean Brady a lot of problems. But long gone are the days where he's going to war with Israel Adesanya. You know, that is not the, in my opinion, that is not the same guy that fought Sean Brady. Um, I just think, you know, maybe the cut down to welterweight. I don't know if he's just focused on losing the weight, cutting the weight,
Yeah.
getting, and less so the technical side of things. But you can't take anything away from Sean Brady. I just think you've got to, if you're Kelvin Gastelum, you've got to look at it like this: are you going to be a top contender anymore? That answer to the question for me is no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, he is a big name, so I can see why they matched him up with someone in the welterweight rankings immediately. But I would have
Yeah,
rather seen him come down and at least make the weight first and fight somebody maybe just outside the rankings to make sure he can do it. Because, like you said, I'm probably on the same boat as you. I think a lot of this camp would have been surrounding him making weight, not training for certain scenarios that he would have been in this fight.
yeah,
Kelvin Gastelum is much better than what we've seen there on Saturday night. Hopefully, he can't stick around again. But yeah, Sean Brady just showed there was levels of this. Like Sean Brady is a serious threat in this division. Hopefully now they make Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady. That's a fight that we need to see next.
yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see just how good Sean Brady's top control is against someone like Gilbert Burns, who, by absolutely no means, is a joke on the ground. He is very, very good, as we all know. The thing with Gilbert Burns, though, I mean, if we're going into that matchup a little bit, Gilbert Burns has the power to hurt Sean Brady, as we all know. But does he have the IQ? I
No.
don't know. Because I mean, me and you both gave up on Gilbert Burns after that Bilal Muhammad fight. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought Burns was an awful stylistic matchup for Bilal Muhammad. I thought Bilal would not have anything for Burns on the ground. I was so wrong. People talk about the injury. I've mentioned it before. It actually happened during the fight. It's not a pre-injury, not like Bilal's ankle. So it's. I just think this fight, if it was to happen, I'd take Sean Brady to get the win. But who knows? You know, maybe Burns will prove us wrong.
Yeah, it would be a great fight. Just quickly before we move on to the co-main and main event, I just want to talk about what we've seen with Drakkar Close coming back after being off from he hasn't fought since 2022 to get that slam KO brutal against Joe Selecki. Then the next fight in the card is Zachary Reese versus Cody Brundage, and he gets slammed as well. You never see slam KOs, and we've seen two back to back. And Cody Brundage, who I do not rate, has saved his UFC career again.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Cody. I mean, is he's like Cody Brundage. He's done it twice, hasn't he, in 1 year? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah,
Cody Brundage is, but you know, he's here. Some people need that though. Some fighters need that this is your last fight. If you don't do something big,
Yeah, you're
we're
right.
gonna. Yeah, so some fighters need that, and obviously, I don't like fighters getting cut. Rest in peace, Blood Diamond. We were all grieving over him recently. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the co-main event, right? We've got to talk about this because
What the fuck was that ref doing?
referee must have hated Bobby Green. He must have been a big Armin Sayukian fan. He must have been a big Armin Sayukian fan. So Jalen Turner, for those of you that haven't seen it, you all have, but if you somehow haven't, Jalen Turner cracks Bobby Green, flush behind the equilibrium. Bobby Green does the chicken dance. He gets sent down. He's out at that point. I mean, he tries to cover up, but he has his
Yeah.
back to any good other referees just stopping that straight away. But fine, the referee allows like 1 or 2, 3 shots of ground and pound. I'm like, okay, it's a bit excessive, but it's a good stoppage. And then 10 shots later, 11 shots later, 12 shots later, Bobby Green's not quite dead, so the referee doesn't step in.
It was like, I just don't get it.
I mean, and the sad thing is no one's talking about Jalen Turner knocking out Bobby Green in the first round. And Bobby Green's just coming off a big win. I don't know what the odds were for that fight, but I certainly thought Jalen Turner, after coming out about his, struggles mentally, he was going to really struggle against Bobby, who's a frustrating fighter. But is Bobby's age starting with him? We've got to talk about that. Jalen cracks him with one good shot, and that seemed to put him out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just up to everyone. What do you make of that?
Yeah, just quickly talking about who was favourite in that matchup, it was Jalen Turner. Another thing that made it really impressive on how he finished Bobby Green is the fact that he took this fight on short notice. And
Yeah.
a part of my who I was thinking was going to win, it was all dependent on this. Jalen Turner is massive for lightweight, and he has missed weight before, and that's with a full camp. So I was really unsure how he would have came into this fight, but he made the weight. Ignore the voice break. He made the weight, and that was arguably his best performance to date. The kicks, he just kept the range. Yeah, I don't know what that referee was doing. It was as if Bobby Green was out, and then Jalen Turner hit him that hard, it woke him back up, and then knocked him out again. It was terrible. It was honestly one of the worst refereeing things I've ever seen, especially when we had another thing I just want to go back on earlier in the card is Bellado in his fight. He got dropped, and that was amazing refereeing. He allowed him to work back into the fight. He wasn't necessarily out cold as bad as Bobby Green, but he was dropped and he was hurt. But the referee allowed him to work because he was showing that he was still in the fight. Bobby Green did not show he was in the fight. This guy was flat on his face, lifeless. And the referee was like, I hit him a couple more times just to make sure for good measure. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Bobby Green, he kind of had a bit of a resurgence in his career with the Tony Ferguson win and the Grant Dawson win. Just quickly, Grant Dawson has one of the worst chins in all of MMA. That was ridiculous how he got finished.
Grant Dawson advantage over Bobby Green, but sometimes the chin just goes.
Yeah. So yeah, Bobby Green, what I think will be next for him is I don't see him retiring, especially because I'm pretty sure he got a hefty contract for stepping in against Islam. I think they really started paying him good. So what's going to be next for him? MMA Guru talked about it, and I think it does make sense if it happens, is Paddy Pimblett if he beats Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Bobby Green's still going to be ranked, and they are going to want to push Paddy into the rankings in some shape or form. And Bobby Green is probably his most likely guy to beat in the rankings, in my opinion. I don't think he beats a Drew Dober. He doesn't beat a Jalen Turner. And then obviously from then you get into the top 10. And I don't think Paddy beats anybody in the top 10. So Bobby Green is his best chance to get a number beside his name, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I can agree with you. I mean, touching on Drew Dober, though, if we're talking about Paddy Pimblett, it depends for me if he really, really struggled against Tony Ferguson, which I don't think he's going to, which I think a lot of people think he would. I really think people are going to be surprised at just how washed Tony is in this fight.
Yeah.
I actually think Paddy Pimblett's going to stop him at the end of the first. And that's my official prediction for that fight. The reason why I think Paddy's shown power, I think he's going to get caught a few times, but Paddy's shown a lot of power, and I really think Tony's chin is going to fully break in this fight. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, We both, by the way, guys, we both really want Tony to win. We both really
Correct.
want the whole nation, the whole country, everybody in the world wants Tony to win. It's not going to happen. But listen, apart from that, Paddy Pimblett, if he was to beat Tony in a real close fight, I think him. It depends what the UFC want to do with him, because I think if it's close, the fans are going to catch on even more if they're not
Yeah.
already. They're not necessarily at the caliber the UFC are trying to push him as. And I think a Drew Dober fight would be fun. I think it'd be an explosive fight where Drew Dober sleeps. And
Yeah.
I hate Paddy Pimblett and Drew Dober would sleep him. But what I'm saying is, it's a fun fight. It is a
Yeah,
fun
it
fight.
is.
But him versus Bobby Green, honestly, I think Bobby Green would beat him as well. But maybe I'm wrong. I think Bobby Green would beat Paddy Pimblett. I think he'd style on him, make Paddy whiff a lot, make Paddy miss a lot, frustrate him. Paddy's got great jiu-jitsu, but he doesn't have the best takedowns. So I
Yeah.
really don't hear Bobby Green. But Bobby Green at the age of 37, I do believe he's at now. I think, the time is approaching where questions have got to be asked about him, and whether he's really ever going to truly be able to break into that top 10.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if I don't think Bobby Green will ever break into the top 10, but just touching on that Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green future matchup potentially, think of like the build up to that fight, because
Yeah,
Bobby Green will argue back with Paddy. Like that could be put on a pay-per-view. And
yeah,
imagine if Bobby Green beats Paddy Pimblett. Like, fair enough, it's not like a ranked opponent, but like his stock just explodes because Paddy Pimblett is a massive star in the UFC, not the best fighter. Personally, I'm not his biggest fan either. I just find him annoying. But he is a big name. And if he does beat Tony Ferguson, even if it is close, I honestly think if he beats Tony Ferguson by a split decision, the UFC will try and get him in the rankings somehow. Because Tony Ferguson, I think, is ranked just outside of the top 15. I don't know where he is, but I know he's just outside of it. So he won't get a number beside his name if he beats Tony Ferguson, unless the UFC give him that Dana White privilege, which there's a high chance they will. But yeah, Bobby Green for me is the person that I feel like Paddy Pimblett has the highest chance of beating in that lightweight division in terms
I
of the
think
rankings.
good question for you about Paddy Pimblett. Now, this had never happened, but let's say Paddy Pimblett destroys Tony Ferguson, which is what he needs to do, by the way, to keep
Yeah, he does.
be competitive in the slightest. He has to destroy him and early. But if Paddy Pimblett was to destroy Tony Ferguson, and I was thinking this, maybe a potential UK card in the future, or maybe I don't think they'd do it for UFC 300, but Conor McGregor, right now, people won't people won't like this, but if I wanted Conor McGregor to come back and get a win as a tune-up fight, like he did with Cowboy, and then fight another one, get another fight against Chandler and win again, and get more pay-per-view buys in, honestly, I think Paddy versus Conor would do big numbers, especially in the UK. I
Yeah, it would
think
do massive.
Paddy and Conor's trash talk would be pretty good. Conor would destroy him, but it'd be pretty good. And then in the fight, Conor gets quite an easy first round KO. He would, let's be honest. I
Yeah.
think even at this stage in his career. But a tune-up fight, you're talking about capitalising on Paddy's hype off a big Tony Ferguson win, capitalising on the return of Conor McGregor, a tune-up fight, like with the Cowboy fight. I think Conor McGregor and Paddy does big numbers. But obviously the UFC won't do that.
And
It
even if
probably
they did do that and Paddy lost to McGregor, I don't think his star would diminish that much at all.
would.
I
No,
think
I
the
mean,
hype would still be there for him.
wouldn't diminish as much as if you lost to Green or Dover.
Yeah.
It's Conor McGregor. And what if Paddy beat him? What if Conor McGregor's washed? You never know. There's something we could go into. The
Game
odds make
over.
it as a plus 2,000 underdog, and then he just head kicks Conor McGregor.
He
Can you
subs
imagine
him
that?
or something.
That
Honestly, that could
world
be a
that
possibility.
happens. There's a dimension out there where that happens.
Um, Moving on to the main event, Arman Surkian, what a finish.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, Benil Dariush, I feel bad for him. I mean, I think before the Charles Oliveira fight, he was on an 8-fight win streak.
Yeah.
Charles Oliveira destroys him. I mean, Arman Sayukian destroys him too. I have got to ask the question of, was Beneil Dariush ever a top 5 world level fighter? I think that question's got to be asked because
It's a fair question.
in the Charles Oliveira fight, it looked like Beneil crumbled under the pressure. I mean, Charles Oliveira pulled guard and tried to drag Beneil into his guard. Beneil's a very good wrestler. He has very good top control, and Beneil didn't want to do it. You know, he kept trying to stand back up. And then Charles Oliveira got up and just flattened him. And then the Sayukian knockout, he almost let Sayukian get him in the collar tie and then just drive that knee straight up the middle and then flatten him with the right hand. He was so much. It's like Beneil couldn't even react. You know, it was so strange. I mean, Beneil is what, 35, I believe
Something
now.
Something like that, yeah.
He's not getting any younger. He's been knocked out twice in a row and quite viciously. I mean, this was a bad knockout. And what a finish by Sayukin, by the way. But, I mean, I thought Beneil was going to give Charles Oliveira a good run. And it's at the stage now where 2 fights later, I'm looking at it going, was he ever actually that good?
I mean, I don't want to give up on him yet. I am a Beneil fan. I've picked him to win the last 2 fights, and he's been KO'd in the first round. So, I mean,
that's probably why. Probably you.
Yeah, that's probably why he's been big because I picked him. But yeah, I mean, coming off that Gamrot win, he made Gamrot look easy, and Orman lost to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a part of me feels like that loss to Oliveira really affected him. And I did pick him to beat Oliveira, but when you watch that fight, you can see like the massive jump in levels between those 2 guys. And I think that is a thing in the UFC's lightweight division. Like you get to a certain stage and there's a massive leap in competition. Like going from Gamrot to Oliveira is a huge jump in levels. And then to get KO'd in the first round, I think that's probably affected, and that would affect anybody really, to be honest. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying. And Orman is just that. Orman is, in my opinion, the dark horse of this division. This guy, in my opinion, will give Islam his toughest test out of everybody at lightweight. I feel like Orman has the best chance to beat Islam Makhachev, basing it off skill sets. In my opinion, he is still fairly young. I think the guy's 27, so he's got so many more years to improve. Great grappler. He shows he's got KO power. What needs to be next for Orman, in my opinion, has to be Dustin Poirier at UFC 300. Dustin can't keep sitting on this spot, ignore the other voice break. Dustin can't just keep sitting there waiting for these fights to come up. Like, who's he going to fight next? Dustin's going to wait until Gaethje eventually fights Oliveira or Islam and gets beat, and then what, do the trilogy?
I honestly think a McGregor 4 fight is very, very possible. I really do. But I mean, it's not being rumored. The rumored fight is McGregor Chandler, but McGregor Poirier is a bigger fight. McGregor Poirier 4 is still an unanswered trilogy in a way. Yeah. Third fight went the way it did. But with Sayukian, I mean, you mentioned the Gamrot fight. If a lot of people actually thought Sayukian won,
it was close.
But think about it, Gamrot did give him a good run though. It was razor tight. But Arman Sayukian versus Islam Makhachev, we've seen it before earlier on in their careers. They're both better now. But I always feel like with Islam is he's just getting better and better and better. And when the 2 fought, Arman did quite well in the scrambles. He did very well on the feet. But Islam still got the better of him. And I think if the fight again, Islam would still be a level ahead of him. You know, as Arman improves, so does Islam. I kind of see it that way. And then him versus Charles Oliveira, could he beat Charles Oliveira? Do you see him doing that? I personally think Charles would finish him, but who knows, man? And like you said, he deserves a Poirier fight. He deserves to get his name out there. But the problem with the lightweight division has at the moment is Chandler will only fight Gaethje, McGregor, and Dustin. Dustin will only fight Chandler, Connor, and Gaethje. Gaethje
Hmm.
will only fight the champion, Oliveira, Connor. They will only fight each other because they're all big stars at the top. And that's
Yeah.
why I feel Dariush struggled so much to break into it. And luckily for him, Charles Oliveira was willing to fight him. But even if Beneil Dariush was to have beat Arman, he was not fighting anyone for a good long while.
No.
None of those defenders would have fought him.
He probably would have got a Gamrot rematch, to be honest, if
Yeah,
he had won.
he probably wouldn't have got anybody good. You know,
Yeah.
that.
Um, it's just a mess. Lightweight's just a mess. A lot of the UFC divisions now, if you actually sit back and look at them, they're a mess.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, don't get me welterweight. I mean, actually, we've got to talk about this. This is a nice little segue
yeah.
because we have my Irish friend here, Don Dada, a fellow Irish man, right? Let's get
Gary.
your on Ian Gary being battered all over social media
Yeah.
the past week. Now, before I get into it, I feel really, really bad for Ian Gary. I really do. Like at
I
the end of the
don't.
day, personally, I wouldn't look. What his relationship is his relationship. I personally, I mean, red flags everywhere. There's a big red flag swinging like this in the wind, saying, get your head out of the clouds. But at the end of the day, that's his private life. I don't care. As a fighter, he's pretty good. Then all of a sudden, there's rumors flooding in that he was KO'd in sparring by Leon Edwards. He's been KO'd in sparring by Shavkat Ratmanov. Brendan Allen saying he was KO'd, but not by Shavkat Ratmanov. What the hell is going on with Ian Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to start off by saying Ian Gary is a good prospect in MMA. He's one of the best. Let's be honest. He's very skillful, but as a person, he is the most unbearable guy on the entire UFC roster. The guy's so unlikable. So all this stuff comes out about his wife, which again, that's their own stuff. Fair enough.
Yeah,
But then the way they handle it, so Sean Strickland comes out and says about it, and Sean Strickland is blunt, so he doesn't hold anything back. He gives his opinion. So then they say, oh, they're going to sue for defamation of character. Now, I am not a lawyer. I am not a lawyer at all. But as far as I'm aware, defamation of character would be trying to paint someone out as something that they are not, which Ian Gary done to Neil Magny. Ian Gary
yeah,
tried to call Neil Magny. I don't want to say in case anything happens to your YouTube channel, but you know what I'm trying to say anyway. He built that story up about Neil Magny, and Neil Magny just kind of had to accept it. And then now that this is happening, Ian Gary's crying, saying, "Don't do this. We're going to sue. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." His he actually might be one of the biggest what ifs in MMA. He doesn't have a gym at the minute, I don't think, or he's out in Brazil. I think I've seen him with Damian Maya, but that means nothing because the week before he's with Leon Edwards, so it doesn't mean anything. This guy's just jumping around. I do think he will beat Vicente Luque because that is a tailor-made matchup for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Leon Edwards knocked him out, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if Rachmanov knocked him out, to be honest. And what those
yeah,
guys say, I get their points. Why is he walking around with cameras recording everybody all the time? Stop doing that. I understand you
yeah,
want to promote yourself, but you have to understand not everybody wants to be on camera. And then
yeah.
he cries, he gets kicked out of gyms.
The man needs a gym. Now, don't get me wrong. I actually like the idea of just going everywhere, trying to get knowledge from everywhere. But at the end of the day, me and you have both been to gyms. Not many people are allowed to just sit there with the phones out recording
No.
every. It's very rare you're even allowed to record a sparring session. But with Ian Garrett, again, personal life is personal life. But the defamation of character thing kind of annoyed me at first because I was like, you can't if you make a book, right, quote unquote, on how to be quote unquote a wag, right? If you make that book and you put a book out which is a controversial topic publicly, then when you do controversial things, as me and you both know, or say controversial things, you will be received controversially. Sometimes someone like Sean Strickland might find that book and he might hate that book and he might write a tweet. Now, you wrote that book knowing it could get backlash and also knowing it could get a lot of support, by the way, because I know there's people that are into that kind of stuff. I don't care. But you can't sue for defamation of character about something you actually did. You actually made that book, did you not? It's like
Yeah,
what
it's like ridiculous.
the facts are the
It's
fact. You read that book. Sean Strickland commented about that book. The MMA guru has commented about that book and commented about your marriage. Guys, you can't sue people for saying that you're a wag. Sorry.
yeah, you
It's
can't.
just not how
Yeah,
life goes. You know, I mean, I don't know about you. People have said mean things to me online. I don't
every
sue
day. I don't care.
that they're going to beat me up when they see me in real life. I don't
Yeah,
sue them or anything like this.
it's like
You know,
I just don't get it. It's like the only saving grace from this whole thing is Colby Covington will have that copy of that book, and it will be on stage for that press conference. And I cannot wait for everybody to just rip the piss out of Ian Gary, and he gets what he deserves.
it's going to be a great press conference. I mean, we've got
Class.
who doesn't like Ian Gary or Colby, and Leon Edwards who doesn't like Ian Gary. Or Colby. Then we've got
Yeah.
Colby who doesn't like any of them. This is going to be
Yeah.
chaos. It's
Yeah,
going to
I
be
really wasn't looking forward to this press conference, but now I am because I know Colby. Colby is literally rubbing his hands at the thought of being able to come out with that book, set it up on stage, and just the place erupting. Ian Gary is finished, and hopefully Vicente Luque knocks him out cold. Hopefully,
but he won't. I mean, a lot
no.
of people are saying all gets to Ian Gary's head. Guys, what you've all probably done is made this beating on Vicente Luque worse. But
Mm,
we'll see.
yeah,
Um,
let's just hope
I,
Vicente Luque beats him. But for this week, that's going to have to do us. We're nearly running out of time, so
oh,
I don't want to promise we're going to get another one out this week, but we are aiming to do one a week. But as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Follow me and Ben on our other socials. They should be linked below. And we appreciate the support as always. And we will see you again in the next one.